Hi, it's the Bulletin Man. Today is Wednesday, the 14th day of September 2011. We're in Cuba today, and we got a great story to tell you all. This is Sarah Arthur, and Sarah has been a victim of the foster system, the family court system for the last, 17, 18 years. And but things are all working out in her favor. The Lord has been good to her, and He's reuniting families. Sarah has her daughter back after 17 years. Her 19-year-old daughter is sitting right next to Sam, who's holding the camera. But we wanted to get this story out on tape and get it out to the YouTube people, because there's probably a lot of other folks who are in this similar situation. This whole foster care system is a racket, and I could even elaborate further about that, but I'm not going to do that at this point in time. I just want Sarah to tell the story. Sarah, tell us what happened in 1994.
Okay. In 1994, January, February, somewhere like that, I was heading to work. I got into a car accident. I was in a coma. I was in the hospital for almost a month. I was in a coma for a week, got 40 stitches in my head, so I had head trauma pretty bad. I went right back to work after I got out of the hospital because I had to support my two children, James and Katrina. I went right back to work. I was a dancer at the time. I met a guy at the club I was working at. I quit my job, hooked up with him. I was with him for about 6 months. And then I was in the kitchen cooking dinner one night. We had an upstairs, downstairs duplex. I was cooking dinner. My daughter Katrina was potty training, and she had an accident in her pants. I turned the stove off, was going to go clean her up, and he said, "No, I got it." So I started cooking again. I had a radio going in my kitchen, so I didn't hear nothing going on. I thought I heard a cry, so I went upstairs. Tommy had already had her out of the bathtub and wrapped in a towel. So he put her to bed. The next day, she didn't wake up till noon. I went and woke her up. I changed her diaper, and she had blisters on her butt. So he had scalded her butt the night before, I found out. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I thought if I took her to the hospital, they was going to take my babies away and take me to jail. So I went to the store and I got some medicine, and I tried treating it at home. The next day, it would be 24 hours after the incident had happened, I finally took her to the hospital because she just kept getting weaker and weaker. I took her to the hospital. They called DFS. I got my kids taken away. I went back home that evening so I could take care of my son. He was still at home with Tommy, the guy who had hurt my daughter. And I went home to take care of him, was going to go back to the hospital the next day to be with Katrina, and here come the cops, rat, tap, tap, on my door. They arrested me. They arrested Tommy. They took James out of the house, and they wouldn't let me go back and see my kids.
Okay, so they arrested you for endangering the welfare of a child, and they arrested Tommy for endangering the welfare of a child.
Yes.
At that point in time, they took control of James and Katrina.
Yes. Katrina was still in the hospital.
Katrina was in the hospital, and they put him into the foster care of
St. Charles.
And this is out of St. Charles County foster care system. And they put him into the family of the ones who subsequently abused your children.
Yes, they did.
And what are their names?
Kathleen and David Helderly. David has passed away now. Kathleen is now out on probation, parole. She didn't go to prison, so she's out on probation. They abused my kids. They was their foster parents who adopted them. They abused them from the time they got them till the time that the state finally figured it out and took them away from Kathy. David was already dead. Let's see. David repeatedly raped my daughter over many years, beat James and Katrina badly, made James sleep on a hard tile floor at night with no blankets, no pillows or nothing. That was his punishment, just in shorts. Kathy one evening come home about 3 o'clock in the morning, drunk, wondered why James didn't do the dishes, and when he said, "I don't know," she said, "Come here." He took a little step forward, she grabbed him and bit his nose and deviated his septum.
And how old was James at this time?
How old was James? About 8, 9 years old?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's Katrina, and that you just heard off of. Come on over here, Katrina, and sit by your mother. This is Katrina. Katrina's finally made it home. Katrina's 19 years old, and she's been in the foster care system since she was 3 years old. she was with the elderlies, is it? For how many years? When did they actually get charged? When did they remove you out of there?
When I was 13.
When you were 13. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they removed you out of that situation.
Almost 6.
6 years ago, but this went on for 10 years basically. Now, when did they start abusing you, Katrina? I mean, from the time you had started, or?
It was the time when David and Kathleen got divorced, which when I was like five or six, and I just started kindergarten, and then they got divorced, and then when I was like 7 or 8, something like that, that's when it started.
Okay. So once they got divorced, then they get back together, or?
They never got back together.
Okay.
They fight and picked and.
Okay.
And then
Lived in
David.
different homes.
Yeah, and then David will lose his house or his apartment, or couldn't have a place to live, or get kicked out of a friend's house because he got drunk. He's always smoking. He was like getting high. He's drinking.
And
every
these
night.
guys were your foster parents getting a check from the state of Missouri,
Yeah.
and you had a caseworker on the case. And who was your caseworker's name?
Janet Miller at that time.
All right. And is Janet still alive today?
Yeah,
or?
she's still a DFS worker.
She is still a DFS worker.
In the same
In the
office
same
building.
office.
In the same office building in St. Charles. So at the time you were moved out of the house at 13, then what foster care system did you go? Then
I went to Pat Martin's house.
Pat Martin, and then you and your brother were separated at that time?
Yes. They
Alright.
put James in a behavioral home because they thought he had behavioral issues.
Okay. And Katrina, I was just looking over her meds. Katrina is on basically 9 different medicines, and she's still taking them at this point in time. But they are prescribed by 5 different doctors. Now, how would you think that they would be able to figure out what medicine's counteracting with whatever other medicine?
Every time I take my meds, I will want to do anything today. Sometimes I don't want to eat. Sometimes I just want to sleep all day.
Get sick.
Yeah, so they've kept
And
her.
I've been getting sick. And they diagnosed me with gastritis.
Okay, well, yeah, obviously the medicines had a big effect on Katrina and her health. And the reason why we're putting this video together today, and thank God for these people because they're standing up and they're doing the right thing, is to share with us with other folks who might be similarly situated, who might have had their kids taken away. Sarah, you were eventually convicted of endangering the welfare of a child. You did, what, 2
years probation, SIS.
All right.
And what I would like to also say, my kids was never taken out of my house before this time, and they was never placed back in my house until Katrina just left the system yesterday and came home. She left and came to me.
And Pat Martin, it was right now, is in New Orleans. We'll
Not
be
at
back
home.
with her bio daughter, who was getting surgery for getting sciences scripts out and getting her tonsils taken out. My sister's husband got shipped out. They're both in the military, and they have a son who's almost 2. And she just let me at the house for 2 weeks by myself with $40 to live.
Okay. So these are her current foster parents, approved by the state of Missouri. But Sarah was basically no other allegations of abuse. One time,
Yep.
and this judge, was it Judge Pelican at the time?
I don't believe it was Judge Paul.
Okay, well, Judge Pelican at the St. Charles Family Court is now in charge of this case and how they can try to keep Katrina and James, who's actually older than Katrina. Katrina's 19, James is 20, and they're still in the foster care system. Sam, how are we doing on time there?
9 minutes. And
All right.
something.
We try to keep these under 10 minutes, but we're going to go a little bit over with this one. But our main thing, what we wanted to do with this video today was basically, first of all, demonstrate to the world that Katrina is healthy, wealthy, healthy and wealthy.
Healthy and happy.
We don't know how wealthy she is.
I had a blast yesterday.
Okay, but she's healthy, she's content, she's back home.
Is this where you want to be?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I told the cops when I came to the door.
The Cuba police came today to check on her welfare, and once they figured out that she was 19 years old, they were very professional and went on about their business.
They shook both of our hands and they left.
And we have the officer's name. You got his
Officer
card?
Shelton.
Officer Shelton. We got to commend Officer Shelton for doing the right thing. And very rarely do I have do I have an opportunity to say, way to go, policeman.
Okay, hold on. I'm
But,
going to show the card now.
There's the card. I don't know if it'll focus in on it, but there's Officer
see it?
Shelton's card. And so, I mean, we're going to have more of these videos up as Katrina kind of gets adjusted to her new situation. She's going to share more of her story.
And hopefully we get James home.
Yes.
Sam, and yeah, our goal, I talked to James's foster parent a minute ago, his foster father, and Lewis is his name, and very nice fellow, and I think he's actually looking out for the best interest of James. Lewis is a black man, and James is white, and James is the only white, but God bless Lewis, he seems to be at least concerned about Judge Pelican is trying to make James go in the military to get off his meds, but Lewis don't think that's probably in James's best interest, and I really don't think it is either.
Me either.
Me neither.
And there have been James have been like this.
Yeah, and really the tragedy of all this is that the siblings were broken apart. Mother has been deprived of seeing her children grow up. She has another daughter, Sam, who's holding the camera, who's very well adjusted and 16 yet? 15.
She's
And,
15, and may I add, I had her 13 days after my final visit picture with these kids, because the welfare office will take a final visit picture, 2 of them, of your child and you. Give one to the foster family, give one to you. So
I
when
forgot
you
one.
meet, you can put them back together and say, yes, you're my...
Yeah.
Well, I had Samantha 13 days after my final visit picture, and she's just fine. She's a straight A honor roll student,
Yes,
healthy. May not be happy all the time, but she's well adjusted.
And what happened to, was it the boyfriend at the time, the one who actually
Yes.
assaulted her?
Tommy Richbowski. He's the one that hurt her, and he went to court also, and he got 6 years.
Okay, well.
I went on to CaseNet and found that out, otherwise I wouldn't have known.
At least the justice system did put him away for 6 years, but Sarah's situation is she basically didn't know what was going on. When she did figure it out after the initial shock of what happened, within 24 hours, did the right thing, took her to the hospital. DFS comes in and swoops down. Now, Sarah, tell me the deal, what they offered you at the courthouse that day, which is very telling of what this is, where this is all going, folks.
Okay, first the judge went in, he heard Janet Miller's testimony, and he took both the attorneys back in his chambers and said if he didn't hear ground-shaking testimony from me, he was going to terminate my parental rights. My attorney come back out and told me that if I signed rights to Katrina away, I could take James home that day and be a perfect happy family with James. Just, I had to sign her away.
So
and I couldn't do it.
So basically they wanted the girl.
Yes.
They didn't want the boy. Now, why would that be? We'll talk about that next time. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks. Katrina.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam, for holding the camera.
Thank
you, Cuba PD, for doing the right thing and not trying to force this issue. We do appreciate you tuning in. We're going to make this available to Mr. Levy, who is the Director of Department of Social Services in Jefferson City. Matter of fact, I'm very familiar with Mr. Levy. Matter of fact, I know where he lives. I was going to put a lien against his house, but God bless him, you know. And I think once this is all exposed, that perhaps they'll stand up and do the right thing. But the moral of this story is if you get caught up in the system, don't trust your attorney for one, because your attorneys, that's all part of the same club. But they take advantage of young. You were 20 years old at the time, going through a very traumatic situation, and Katrina is now just about the age, and her mother got all this happened to her. But Katrina has suffered this unspeakable abuse over the years, and you know, God has dealt with the abuser.
And I got cut.
She got stabbed.
She got stabbed, and the boy got cut too. So anyway, that's all we got to say for now. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.